Hello. Hi, how's everyone doing today? Welcome. This is BPM 113, Smart Workflow Designs to Grow Your Company. I'm Sherry from Laserfiche International, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to our speaker today, Doug Miller, Operations Manager at the Canadian Seed Growers Association. Though trained as a biologist, Doug built most of his organization's 50 plus workflows and business processes. He is a seed biologist, tech junkie, and laserfiche addict. Please welcome Doug Miller.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Doug Miller. I'm glad to be here today. Usually, whenever I'm asked to speak or give a presentation, it's usually in a barn or beside a tractor. So being inside sunny California, it's a nice little change of pace. So this course is basically designed for all end users, new people, old people. Don't mean age, but old users. But especially for Laserfiche believers, the Laserfiche addicts, and the Laserfiche dreamers. I know last year was my first conference here, and I was a Laserfiche skeptic when I first came. But then after about the first day, I was a Laserfiche believer and then a dreamer. So I dream a lot about Laserfiche. So today we're going to do this keep it relatively simple, but we're going to do three things. First, we're going to do an overview of what actually CSG is, and then we're going to talk about our solution and why we had to do it. So how many of you, raise of hands, have heard of the Canadian Seed Growers Association? You and your friends talk about it at night. All right. Well, CSGA is the world's largest seed certification agency in the world. So each year we certify between 14,000 to 18,000 seed crop inspections, which relates to about over 1 million acres. And of that, there's about 2,000 varieties and 52 different crop kinds. So we're talking like the wheat, the barley, the soy, all that kind of stuff. And we represent approximately 3,500 seed growers. And so our seed growers, they're a wide range of individuals. They range from the mom and pop farm operations to the multinational companies like Monsanto and Pioneer. So we have to whenever we're dealing with our growers, it's a wide range. So a lot of technical expertise on the high end, but on the other end, we're lucky to have a fax machine. And so all of our system occurs within a 4-month window across all of Canada. So we're quite spread out. But before I get started, I'll just say we're not going to talk about seeds at all. So you don't need to be a seed biologist or anything to follow along. So why am I up here? Well, for the last 109 years, our inspections at the Canadian Seed Growers Association of those, of those 14,000 to 18,000 fields were done by the federal government on our behalf. So the government would be our boots on the ground. They'd do reports and submit them back to us. However, in 2012, recent budget cuts meant that we had to find a new inspection workforce. So a lot of fields, we had relied on about 200 inspectors in the past, and so we basically had to privatize the system. And so we needed to rebuild a whole new system in 18 months. So our system was very paper-based and slow. So to give you a nutshell, it was So at CSGA, it was very hard copy, paper-based. Everything was printed off in the central office in Ottawa and mailed across the country. Those papers would then come back to our office, and then we'd do data entry and send them back out. And so this process was very slow and time-consuming and inefficient. We were always doing data entry, it seemed. If we got a form that we sent out, we had to get it back in, and we had to rewrite it. And it was very resource wasting. We were always spending a fortune on printing and mailing costs. So our solution, we worked with a Laserfiche and LinkDoc integration. In the past, we've tried to do custom applications. However, we found that Laserfiche and LinkDoc worked really nicely for what we had to do. So basically, the first step is the application process, where the grower needs to tell us that these are the fields that they're going to have this year, and they need an inspection done, and they want certification. So what we did was we created an online application process through LinkDoc. And this allows the grower to submit their application and submit it directly to Laserfiche. So whenever it gets saved into Laserfiche, it gets saved with a bunch of metadata. And so this is a great option, but like I said before, we work with a very wide range of growers. And so most of the growers that we have don't even have a fax machine. So do a lot of you work with clients like that that don't have a computer or a fax machine? Yeah, so it's quite difficult. And so we still have to rely on the hard copy-based processes. So what we've done, so we use a lot of different Laserfiche products. We use Laserfiche Client, Laserfiche Web Access, WebLink, Mobile, and the SDK. And we recently just started working with forms. What we did was to process these hard copy ones that would come in, we created a custom module with the Laserfiche SDK that allowed us to scan in the reports using quick fields, but then just assign key metadata to the document. And so then we could pass it into this Laserfiche SDK that we built, the solution that we built, that basically ties it back into the database. So we can do all the data entry within this, and we can tie it back in. Also, some neat little things that we built into this were the annotations and minor corrections on the document. What we found out yesterday in one of our courses is that we might have to redo it based on the new SDK kit that came out that just makes it a lot easier to do this kind of stuff. So what do we do? So in the past, these applications, they'd get routed to our office, and we would sort them, and we would process them. We'd do an appraisal, and then we'd do data entry. And then what would happen is we'd print off the reports, and we'd get them ready for mailing. And so this was very inefficient. So what we do now is we basically route the applications based on the inspection service that they have, and we route them to them through web access. So in the new system, all of the new inspection services are using web access to communicate with our office and receive documents through there. So here's basically an overview of our application workflow. It's pretty simple. Well, I should back up and say this. Whenever we first started talking about Laserfiche in our workflows, we're seed growers. We have the most complicated workflows of all time. There's no way Laserfiche will ever be able to do that. Does that sound like you guys? But what we saw was that our workflows weren't actually complicated. There was a lot of extra steps that were in the hard copy-based process. So whenever we converted to a paperless system, those went away. So no longer did I have to put it in the red box. So the things that made our application really difficult went away. So what we were able to do is basically streamline our application just to be straight through processing, take away all the different complexities that paper had. And so this is probably the most interesting part of our solution. So in the past, we had the 14,000 to 18,000 crop inspection reports coming in on paper. How many of you know what the 18,000 sheets of paper looks like? It's a lot. And so basically, these old reports in our system, they were basically 3-page carbon-based copies. Okay, you familiar with this? It's a new technology. So what would happen is we'd print these off in Ottawa, and then we'd send them out across the country. So from the East Coast to the West Coast, and they'd go out on a daily basis. So every day we were doing like a mailing of all these applications. So they'd go out in like hundreds here and there. So basically what we wanted to do was streamline this and make this an electronic process. So what we did was we worked with LinkDoc, who we worked with on the application, and we created our inspection report form within LinkDoc. And so now whenever an inspector needs to do an inspection, what he's going to do is he or she is just going to call up the report inside LinkDoc, and it pulls off all the database information on the back end. And and they're able to complete the report. So we'll do a demo I'll show a quick demo in a little while on this. It's our nifty little thing that we really love. And so last year was the first year that we used the iPads. So we equipped about 75 of the 200 inspectors with iPads. And so it was an interesting endeavor. We were able to get a lot, the data coming back was a lot more, was in better shape than the data that we were getting on the hard copies. And what we found was in the past, whenever the inspections would be done, it would take 15 days for the report to get from the field to our office where we do the appraisal on it. And so that's a long time in our world because there's some crops like soybeans where as soon as the inspection's done, they need to know if they're able to harvest or not. And so that 15-day process, the 15-day lag is quite a problem. So with this link doc and Laserfiche web access combo, we're able to get that process down to 2 days. So for us, that was a huge time saving. But we still have people complain about the 2 days. So they weren't happy with the 15 days, but they're still not happy with the 2 days. So you can't win. So basically what happens is in the past, this whole process was paper-based. So as we had to privatize the system, we really had to say, okay, are we going to be handling paper in the office or electronic? Well, because all the reports are coming in through the iPad, we're like, we might as well just do it within web access and the Laserfiche SDK. So whenever these inspection reports come into the office, they're routed to an appraiser who says yay or nay, basically. We won't get into the intricate details of seed certification here. But then the growers are issued the report. And so this whole process, instead of being moving one pile of paper from one location to the other, it's now done automatically through Laserfiche. And so this process allows us to be really fast. Our applications, we're able to process them about 10 times faster than what we were before. And for us, that's a big difference. It makes a big difference because we're a relatively small organization. People think that we're very large just because we have some big stats, like being the world's largest seed certification agency. But we're really small. We only have about 11 people in our office. So being able to process the applications 10 times faster has been great. And then the reports are now received within 2 days as opposed to the 15-day lag that I told you about. And we're able to make the system a lot more efficient. And it's all done through workflow. We use workflow for pretty much everything. And so whenever we need to make a new workflow, we can either do that internally by ourselves, or we can contract our VAR. But how many of you have actually built a workflow? So there's a few in here that have never built workflows. What are you guys waiting for? It's like I found last year, before I came to the conference, I hadn't done anything. And then after I came here, I was able to go back home and jump right into it, much to the chagrin of the IT programmers that I work with. I'd like to move fast and all over the place. And so we're able to make modifications as we go on the fly. Let's say that something isn't working correctly, we're able to say, okay, let's go into the workflow tool, and let's see where things are getting stopped up, and let's see if we can modify them. So if we see a problem in a workflow, let's say that for our email notifications going out of the crop inspection report, let's say that there's no attachment being attached to it. Something's wrong with our workflow. We can just go in ourselves and change that. So with Laserfiche Workflow, I always tell Ivan here in the corner that if you can think it, you can do it. And I'm not trying to sell you the workflow, but if you can think of anything, like we saw Secret Santa done, like Like if you have the time to do anything, like if you have the time to do it, like think it and do it, Laserfiche Workflow can do pretty much anything. And for us, our new system with the whole Laserfiche and LinkDoc integration was it turns out it's very cost effective. Is there any Canadians in the room? So, yeah. So are you guys happy about the new price hike from Canada Post? Basically, in Canada, it's going to go up to $1 to send a piece of mail. Yeah. So in hindsight, us going to this electronic system where we don't have to mail anything out looks pretty great and pretty smart. So we like to tap ourselves on the back as much as possible. And in the past, our system was there was data out there, but it wasn't accessible. You couldn't get a copy of, let's say that you weren't actually in the field when the inspector was in the field with you. Yeah, I'm saying I'm a grower here. And you didn't get a copy of that crop inspection report, you would never see that thing. But now with the new system, you're able to get a copy in your inbox. We're working on integrating with WebLink, read-only access within our website. So if you click on a link, you're able to see a copy of the inspection report. So we're really putting our information out there. And so all the people, because there's not just the growers who are involved, there's they work for different companies and stuff like this. So having everyone being able to see all the data and stuff, it really makes a big difference in actually able to see the documents. So this next part is pretty much my favorite part of the presentation. We're going to do some before and after photos here, okay? So I don't want you guys to shriek and be scared and run out the room at some of the pictures you're about to see here. All right. So this is Ross. So this is Ross. So Ross is one of our appraisers in the office. So what Ross does is he basically grades paper, grades reports, okay? It's a very glamorous job, I know. So, but basically what we're seeing right here is applications, okay? So this is the applications that the growers submit to our office. You can see there, it's a lot of paper, okay? This is 1 day's worth of work that Ross has here, okay? Thank you for thank you for that. So now with Laserfiche, we're able to turn Ross's workstation from this to this. That's a nice little change. And so now to maneuver his applications, what Ross would do is he'd just go into Laserfiche and play around in there, and he'd be all set. And so these applications right here, these aren't just sitting in our office. In the past, we would mail these along with a copy of the crop inspection report to all the inspection offices. So this mail would come, we'd send all this mail out, it would come back in, and we'd send it back out, and it would come back in. So you can see where web access looks pretty good, would work pretty well for that. So this is CSJ filing before. So there's a lot of paper coming in at a very quick time, a very short period of time. So that's the applications that Ross had on his desk here. This is probably, let's say, a week or two of work. And so if you're a grower and you say, oh, Doug, I don't know if I filled out that form correctly. In the past, I'd be like, are you kidding me? I now have to go through this big stack of paper. Because eventually it would get filed by grower name, but at this stage, it's a dog's breakfast going in there. You're like, when did you submit this? And so in the past, we actually had our growers on hold a lot of the time because we would say things like, oh, just hold on a second, I have to go grab it. And you'd be lucky if you were back 15 to 20 minutes later. So it wasn't the most efficient thing. So with Laserfiche, we're able to take that application now and have it within Laserfiche. And so that sorting and filing is gone. So all the sorting and filing, like everything else in workflow, is all done automatically. So it's pretty great. This is our summer student, Grant, okay? He's quite a happy guy whenever he's not doing this. So these are crop inspection reports, okay? So before we talked about how many different varieties we deal with and how many different crop kinds, okay? So, but we also deal in 2 official languages, okay? So this is a stack of reports that's come in early morning. So this is 1 day's worth of work. So before someone like Ross could actually work on this, it needed to get sorted. And so first sort by language, okay? So that's a pretty big sort right off the bat. And they don't come in order. They don't like to put them in order before they submit them. They just, here they are, deal with them. So they'd go by language, crop type. So it's 52 different ways. And then by some crops like wheat or soybeans, we sort them by variety. So that's a pretty labor-intensive sort. You're laughing, but it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun. But now, this just does it. Laserfiche does it automatically. We can sort it any way we want. And I'm really excited for the multi-sort feature that's in web access. Because for us, we can sort any different way now. We can put on different sorting requirements and stuff like that. So it just helps us streamline the work. So this is Ross before his long hair and before his dreads. So you're really getting a stage progression of where we've come from based on his hair growth here. So this is Ross and another one of our former employees. And they look happy. Well, they're not happy about the paper-based workflows. They're happy about that new scanner there in the corner there. So it's a big Kodak scanner that we had. And so right here you look at that and you say, okay, it's not a very big area. There's not a lot there. That looks like a wall of paper, that is. So basically at CSGA, before we did the whole workflow and all this automating our process, our biggest hurdle was getting our archives. How many of you have the perfect archiving system? Well, I'll tell you a little hint. I shouldn't disclose this because we're on camera. But so we'd file everything. So we'd put it, basically at CSGA, our old archiving procedure was to put it into the photocopier and run it, and then save to a DVD disk. It was, whenever we had to go back and look for something, it was a nightmare because it was like a 5 gig file and you're trying to scroll through it, and if it wasn't sorted properly, you curse the person who put it through. And so in a 6-month period, we basically put in about 7 years of archiving into the database, which equated to about 100,000 documents. So for us, this scanner was a godsend. It allowed us to just process everything through. At first, whenever we first started, we got a little desktop scanner. That didn't last long. with like a 60-page feed. So if we went to something that its tagline was relentlessly efficient, that really spoke to me. And so our office, we were able to get rid of 11 filing cabinets. And as I said, we're not a very big office or a big staff. So 11 filing cabinets takes up a lot of floor space. And so we were able to actually get some more room in our office for activities. And so we were able to get rid of all these filing cabinets. So our workstation, that back corner, went from this to this. It's still not very glamorous, but it's very clean for us. Everything that we need is now within our Laserfiche system. And what we'll do is we'll just give a little demo of our LinkDoc product here that we have. So this is what the inspectors do to fill out an inspection report. How many of you work in similar work that you would need to do inspections? Yeah, I hope there's no other seed companies here. I've disclosed too much. So you do remote inspections? All right. So one thing that when we talk about a lot of these inspections, it's one or like the gentleman before me, the presenter, he apparently has a ton of iPads. So for us, our system, our inspections, they're not done within the city centers. They're not even done, they're rural Canada. We're lucky if we get cell phone reception inside the cities. So we needed a system that allowed us to do online and offline reports. Makes a lot of sense. So this is the one solution that at the time was available to us, and we were able to deploy it. So just let me all see that. So this you see here, I'm using an iPad. It's only available on the iPad. So we rolled this out last year to about 75 inspectors, various ages. And I say that whenever we did an end-of-year survey, one of our first questions was, have you ever used an iPad before? Majority were no. So that was an interesting training experience for sure. But we'll show you something neat that we came up with to help with our training next year. So basically, to call up an inspection report, the inspector, instead of lugging around a big stack of paper, what he'll do is now he'll lug around this, hopefully. And so what he does is he calls up the report. And now what's going to happen is it's just going to load up a blank form. And it's going to be very top-down, okay? So in the past, we've worked with other apps where it was kind of like you're filling out a form. Basically, there was a form that you basically you're seeing a PDF of your form. We had that, and we found that people it didn't really work for some of our users because they liked more of a script, and so we found the top-down was less confusing for them, and they were able to get the inspections done a lot quicker. So I'm going to do it here as a pioneer inspector. In our system, we have two keys. One is the grower number, and the other one is the sequence number. And so we'll just put in the grower number. This is mine. Let's do this. So basically let me get a better view. So basically what happens is, this is based on user feedback. We just type in the grower number, and you're able to see all the grower's fields that he has. Sorry. So you're able to see all the fields that you have. You're going to see a lot of AC bacon. That's the variety that we use a lot of in the office. I don't know why, but we do like bacon. So what you do is you basically select the field that you want to do, and you hit select. And what it does is it goes to the database and pulls out all the data for it. For us, whenever we saw that, we're like, oh man, that's awesome. Because no longer do we have to print. How many of you have a dot matrix printer that says quiet, but it's not quiet? So all those applications, so I should back up. Our inspection reports were going out on the 3-part paper on a dot matrix printer. And so you'd start it at noon, and you hope it would be done by the end of the day for the inspection reports that need to go out. And so that removes this whole procedure. So what took 2 or 3 people half a day to do is now done in a few clicks there. So basically what we did was we just optimized a lot of drop-downs here. So here you see the different types of inspections that you can do. And this things like this are all key data like this. So this is a seed crop inspection. We take this and we apply it to a Laserfiche template, and we use it to trigger and direct workflows. So for example, this one, the seed crop inspection, the workflow, it will say that if it's a seed crop inspection report, you're allowed to send it to the grower. But if I'm doing monitoring and oversight on the government, who also uses this, I'll do check inspection. That can't go to the grower. So that's government oversight. We don't want that going out. So we use that as a key piece of metadata that we use. And so it's basically just like any other app, a lot of drop downs. You can attach tags. So you all will be a tag. So very slick user interface we find. And so we're able to get the reports into the system very quick. So we're able to take that 15-day lag. So whenever they're done their inspection, they'll go through it. They'll go through it and they'll complete it. So I'm going to be an inspector. I'm going to do a terrible job on it. I won't fill out anything. But so it does like automatic counts, all things that you would expect. So you ready to submit? This is something interesting here at the bottom. Like whenever, for me, I do a lot of my work in Ottawa. I work inside of a little box. And so this is something that the inspectors asked for. They wanted like a confirmation that they were ready to submit it themselves. They're like, yep, I'm ready to go. It's kind of a weird thing, but the users seem to like it. Oh, sorry. I swear I've done this before. So, and then to finish the report, you just click finish, and basically what it does is it sources it onto the report. And so now I can sign it. And then whenever I have cell phone reception or internet connection, I can just sync this. And so what happens is that this gets picked up by Laserfiche, and it gets routed to, pardon? Yeah, if you could go to Larry, yeah, sure. I don't, sorry. So this gets basically sent then to the inspection service, and they're able to approve it, and then we get it, and we're able to issue a certificate. So it all works pretty slick. You can see the tags that you're uploaded there. So basically what this does is it just stores it as a TIFF in Laserfiche, and then Workflow takes control of it from there.
Is the document signature embedded in your link document program, or is that a different program?
No, it's in that program. It's an add-on that we have. Another thing that we use web mobile for. So how many of you use the mobile app? You should. It's for us, we're a small organization, and the fact that we can have an Apple app to call semi our own is quite impressive. The Laserfiche suite offering allows you to have a lot of firepower. So for us, if we didn't have Laserfiche mobile, we'd be in the development phase of a mobile app for years. So it's out-of-the-box functionality. Overnight, you can have an iPhone and iPad app. It's incredible. Good work, Laserfiche people at the back. And so this is basically what the inspectors will see on inside Laserfiche. So basically, we wanted, like everyone else will say, that we wanted to mimic the paper-based system because people, they love them some paper. So basically what we did was we basically created what they have been using in their own information silos in their paper-based processes, and we put it into basically Laserfiche. So automatic sorting and filing. So this inspection office wanted all of their applications to be sorted by the inspector that they assigned it to. And so they're able to easily find them whenever they want to go out into the field. Let's go look at Paul Scott. So you're able to pull up the application. So no longer do you have to carry that big stack of paper. You're able just to go in here and say, okay, so this is where this field is. Okay, I'm ready to do the inspection. You call it up in LinkDoc. So for us, it works pretty well. And just like everyone else, we use the metadata trigger workflows. And any questions? Sure.
After the inspector has gone through and filled out that form, at that point you really...
Yeah, they're gonna give you a microphone. Yeah.
Okay. After the inspector has gone through the form, filled out all the information, hit the submit button to complete it and everything, and then realizes, oh, oops, I forgot to put something in. Can he then go back and modify that form, or does he have to start all over again?
That's the weak point right now in our system.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, you pulled it out pretty fast. So we're working on workarounds, but the one workaround that we use is the annotation tool within Laserfiche. So we just go in and draw it on, and then we make the change in the database. It's not the most efficient use of time, but for right now, that's what we do. Eventually, I'd like to be able to call up the unique report that was submitted for that particular inspection on through LinkDoc, but we're just not there yet. I can see us actually doing it in Laserfiche forms, just like a correction form.
What database are you accessing?
We use Microsoft SQL 2012. The question was, what database are you using?
I just have more of a comment. Personally, I'm really glad that you were chosen as a presenter here. I think it's really inspiring to see someone that's an advocate for Laserfiche and how you use it as a biologist, but you know, it says Laserfiche addict and things like that, and tech addict. So I find that really inspiring, and I work for a small city of 8 in a rural area myself. And so to see your example of what you've done, it really gives me a lot of ideas of how we can integrate Laserfiche into all facets of our city government. So I'm really glad that you're here, and great presentation.
Yeah, thanks. And for us, I'm a biologist. Ross is also a biologist, and we have a tech guy named Ivan. So the good thing about Laserfiche is that the average user with a little bit of knowledge and a trip to the Empower conference, you can jump in there. You can create forms. Have you seen how easy Laserfiche Forms is to use? Yep. God, you can build a web form in minutes. It's really like coming here is a good first step, and it's my suggestion is just to dive off into it, and it's quite fun. Like once it's addictive. You're like, okay, like how can we? Like, what's the next crazy thing that we can work on? So one thing I'll show you too. We talked about how we have 200 inspectors. Okay.
I was just about to ask you a question on that.
Sure.
In mobile, we cannot edit the form, but on that case, we can use waveforms for the same data for changing the data. Suppose I find that I have given a wrong detail on a mobile.
Yeah.
The data is there with in Laserfiche. So can we use Laserform form for editing that data?
I assume you could, but for the most part, what the inspectors seem to be trying to adjust is small counts. So what happens in our inspections is that the inspector will go out into a field and he'll do a count. So like he'll walk into the field and he'll do 6 counts of 10,000 plants. Okay, so what they're doing is they'll be like, okay, actually, so if he writes down, I saw 6 plants that weren't of variety X. And then he's like, no, actually, I was wrong. There's now 10. So that's the kind of adjustments. It's not like the key metadata, which you could change in Laserfiche. It's more just, it's just like the minor stuff that, like for a page annotation, like an annotation box, it works quite well for us. Sorry. Yeah, so the
question was going to be, you mentioned the metrics around improvement in processing time. I was just wondering if you could comment on productivity improvement for the inspectors themselves.
Yeah, so the inspectors, they find like they're a great bunch, but they like to point out small things. So their thing is that it takes longer to fill it out. And so they don't like having to type it all into the database. But for me, as the person receiving that data, I now have a wealth of information inside the system. So for them, they kind of balk at it, being like, oh, if I just had paper, I just sign it and I'm done. But now they have to enter stuff in. So they don't really like that, but they have to, so it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little thing that we added to all of our Laserfiche suites to help with training. This, for any of you who work in like having to support users or take information from users who are using Laserfiche, this is something you're going to like. How many of you have heard of OLARC? None of you? Okay, so you guys will all get OLARC accounts whenever you get back. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our website. Yeah. So basically what we've done is, so we have 200 new inspectors. I never see these inspectors. They're all over Canada. How can we train them? Well, we do like webinars and stuff like this. But for the people who are using web access, it's a new tool, and we need them to do the work. But they're like, well, what happens if I'm lost, or things like this? So what we found last year was, as soon as there was a first sign of trouble, they would phone our office immediately. And we only have 11 people. We can't be a support site for 200 inspectors. So on things like web access, we embedded this chat feature here in the bottom where you can type in your grower number, your inspector number, and you can talk to someone in our office. And so let's say that you're in web access and you're having a hard time figuring out how the metadata works or a search works. Basically what you do is you just type here saying, hey Doug, I'm having problems with this, and we have a back and forth chat. And with this one, we're actually able to show you on your screen through this little thing here how you would actually trigger the workflow, so doing drop downs with the metadata. So for us, we're really excited about this. We went pretty gung-ho and embedded in Laserfiche web access and stuff like that. Really easy, I assume. And for us, I think our end users are going to really like it. So they already do use it without us even really talking about it. So it's just a really easy way for us to support our inspectors who are doing things, who are working with Laserfiche. Any other questions?
So what are the plans on making the reports available to the growers via direct like web link or website access
Yep.
in the future?
Yeah, so we can actually show you that. So here's what so just let web access load, but we'll show you. It's another good question. Basically, what we're doing is we're using Workflow to generate web link URLs, and then we're just passing that through to our members' login, so they can log in and they can just click on a link, and it will pull up a read-only view that they can print off, because they do like to print.
Security for that? Like, are all these reports accessible to anyone, but they just have to receive the link, or?
No, so we don't send out, it's based on login credentials. So if I log in as myself, I'm only going to be able to see the inspection reports that are available to me. So you'll see here in the bottom of web access, there's our web access site. We're in the process of getting a nice pretty splash page, but if I needed help here, I would just click on that and I could work. So for your question here, I'll show you where we're going to be putting it. Sure.
Follow on to that is about the license. Will you be buying retrieval user license for your growers in order to make them available if they are?
No, so we bought a web link public portal.
Public portal?
Yeah, and we just have the 10 concurrent users, and we think that's going to be enough just for the intermittent use. So we have ISS, if that's the correct term, set up so that if you're not active in 2 minutes, it just kicks you off, and so it frees up a license.
So, but then does that mean they're not authenticated in the Laserfiche repository as a user?
Yeah, they're not.
And so if someone has the web link URL that's not a grower, they're able to access that document, perhaps? No? Or?
Perhaps, yeah, but...
have that no one's gonna have those web link URLs unless.
And I think that there's like, we disabled all like the breadcrumbs and all that. So whenever you try to get away from that page, you can't really do anything. So you can't get access to the rest of the documents there. You're pretty much stuck with that document. And though there is sensitive information on there, it's not national security. No one's going to die. So like, if a report gets out, like these growers, they share their reports with many different people because they use it as kind of like a sales technique. They'll say, well, like this was a clean field, there was no impurities. So in the future, they might want the ability to share links or stuff like that. But we'll have to see. For us, we're just kind of in our infancy with Laserfiche and our whole automation. We're integrating it with pretty much everything that we do. We're integrating it with our CRM. We build little custom apps for it. So we're like, there's a few of us now. We're just Laserfiche addicts, like I said before, where we're just like constantly thinking about how we can do the next step or what's the next thing. So does that answer your question? Sure. Sure. Well, thanks for coming. It's been great.
Thank you, Doug, for joining us today. It was a very wonderful presentation. How about one more round of applause?
All day, if you guys want to talk Laserfiche workflows,